Welcome to the IRONMAN Insider presented by Maurten, where we dive deep into the minds of the world's most elite athletes as they chase their Ironman dreams. I'm your host, Matt Lieto, and I'll say today I'm pretty thrilled to bring a conversation with none other than Kristian Blummenfelt, an Ironman world champion, Ironman 70.3 world champion, an Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most dominant forces in endurance sports. And he's coming off a win that showed that dominance just recently here at the Memorial Hermann Ironman Texas North American Championship. What's going on, Kristian?
Thank you. Good to be on the pod, and just made it back home after 2 months of traveling, and I would say pleased with how the season started. Obviously, unfortunate to get the puncture out in Oceanside, but pleased with both the fitness I showed there and also to take 5,000 points from Texas. So now suddenly I'm a little bit more eager towards the IRONMAN Pro Series again. In the beginning, I was just thinking about Nice and Marbella, but now, also the IRONMAN Pro Series looks quite interesting. Second score table there now.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And you're currently second behind Rudy van Berg, right?
Yeah. So, but I think by like the race I did in Oceanside, should be fine to swap out with some points in Aix-en-Provence, hopefully. So so I think it was more important to get full score in Texas, and then I can sort out the half distance a little bit later on. So I think, as you know, when it's twice as much points for the full distance, it's going to be really crucial to perform in those chances you are having. So I will do Frankfurt in a few weeks, and then also, isn't it 6,000 points in Nice? So that's going to be crucial as well. And then you can't lose too many points over a half.
No, and I mean, I will say, were you thinking about the Pro Series a little bit in Oceanside? Because that run split after that flat was bananas. What'd you run there?
Not really. Like it was more for my own sake and to get a little bit like to see what's in me, and also to get like a good training session in. When I had a flat tire and I was waiting for maybe 14-15 minutes, and then I started riding again. I had Talbot, and I'm on course and screaming like every second's matter. And I was like, I'm too far down that this will be a counting race. So I didn't think about the points there. Then it was more just to get like a good session in, and then good stimuli, and then moving on to Texas.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I will say though, looking at that as the race went on, obviously you were out of the race in Oceanside, but seeing the 107 run split, it's got to be pretty nice to have in the back pocket.
Yeah, so I was happy with that, and also it wasn't soft paddling on the way back home. I was riding steady, even like I guess I was losing maybe another 2 minutes to the front of the guys. When I start paddling again properly, so I lost a little bit. But it wasn't like recovery ride, and it's something different to run far back in the field versus in the front of the race. So, but yeah, it was great to be back into the mix, and also after I start catching up some pros I had, it got a little bit more motivated to push through.
No, that's awesome, man. And obviously a good little workout before Texas, which went pretty well, you should say. How'd you feel over there in Texas? Everything firing on all cylinders? Look like
yeah. So I felt quite strong, especially coming out of Oceanside the first 10 days. So we had some proper or solid sessions in Texas. Unfortunately, it wasn't too warm. I felt it was good temperature the first week, but much drier than normal. And then the second week, the temperature was dropping, and it started raining a little bit, and then the humidity came up. So we didn't have the ideal temperature that we were hoping for in order to get maximizing the heat prep. I was feeling sort of the same as I did going into Hawaii. Like I felt a bit more tired race week than I did the week before. So this time around, I was bringing the volume quite a bit down the last 4 or 5 days, and was really hoping to have like the energy and sort of the kick that was needed for race day, and was quite pleased with how I was responding.
Awesome.
especially on the swim compared to how I was swimming in Oceanside. I was like 45 seconds down, I think, on the swim in Oceanside. And then in Texas, and I was able to swim quite comfortably in that front pack, even though we were maybe. I think the pace wasn't as hot in Texas as it was in Oceanside, so it was maybe 15 or 20 guys who was there or thereabout. But I was at least much more relaxed and comfortable in the water, and then on the bike, feeling strong from the beginning. But then, as you know, like when it's like 15 or 20 guys in line, you don't want to put your head on the table and do too much of the work the first 120K. So I was trying to read the situation a little bit and stay up front and see if someone was making a move and sort of. I thought that Kristian would make a little bit of damage and get away a little bit like he did in Frankfurt.
Yeah.
But it was just too difficult, I guess, with the course and being on the highway, and every time you're opening up a gap, you suddenly have one of the guys who is in that 15-man big field or group is then suddenly like it's jumping across again. So it's always someone that's jumping across, and that makes it quite difficult to create that gap. But then after, I guess, we were sitting up a little bit and we got caught by Camworth and Robert Kalin, and we came onto that second lap when it was quite packed with age groupers as well. That was like when it was a little bit more messy out on course, because it gets a little bit, you're losing the sense of who's in front, because you have maybe you can see maybe 100 athletes up front, and then if they stretch out a little bit and you know that 5 of them are pro, suddenly you're losing a little bit of the control of who is the pro and who is the age grouper. And that's maybe kudos to the age groupers looking so slick and so aerial. So suddenly I was like 45 seconds down from the new front of the group, and I had to make a little bit move. And that was also the point where also Gustav was up front, and if he was then getting dragged along with Camworth and Robert, and I was further behind, I could have been a difficult race to catch him again. So managed to bridge up to him, but he unfortunately got a flat tire on the way. And then I was back up together with Robert and them.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, it's funny. Tactics are always different at different races and different courses, but I think now, especially you talking about that swim group, like when you're talking about the early season and these IRONMAN Pro Series races, like, Ben Canute, if he's on the front, he's going as hard as he can, right? But when there's 25 people, like explain to us a little bit how sometimes the group can stay together when there's more kind of talent in the field.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to Ben about his swim, but I can imagine that when he sees that there is 15 or 20 guys on his feet, he then also ease off a little bit. He doesn't dig himself, because he knows that he needs to save some energy for the bike and the run. So you have some guys who feel that they can push the swim quite a bit without sacrificing their bike and run. And then you have maybe some stronger swimmers who only goes to the front and they try to do damage if they see that the field is stretching out. So I got the feeling a little bit that he was taking the lead because no one else wanted to take the lead.
Okay.
But as well, when you're getting then 2 or 3 guys on his feet or on his hips again, he will then be sort of slowed down by the guys behind him. And then it's getting even easier to be in that 3rd or 4th or 5th position. So it's a difficult position to be in when you see that you're not opening up a gap. It's a little bit like if you are leading the train of 15 or 20 guys, you might feel that you're doing a lot of damage on the guys who is in 25th position. But when you're having 20 guys behind you who is sort of gaining on the work you're doing, you think twice, and that's why you're trying to see if you're able to open up a gap, then you try to accelerate. But if it doesn't work, you sort of ease back again.
Yeah, you don't want to give your closest competitors kind of that free ride, right, on the bike or the swim for that matter. And that bike course, the tactics changed a little bit, and as you said, that end of that second loop, that's the only time there's kind of some sort of opportunity to be tactical. And it seems like those guys kind of took that.
Yeah. And also the fact that when you're having the age groupers on the right side of the road and they're in a big line, no matter if you're getting dropped by the group, like everyone is getting this sort of tailwind or like getting dragged a little bit along. So maybe
Yeah,
even
yeah,
getting dropped, it's easier to ride there than being completely by yourself. So it's also
sure.
easier to be still like riding at a steady pace. But again, I think you saw it was during the last 60Ks where either people was able to bridge it back up again, or they were sort of
Yeah,
riding steady in their own pace. And it's like a tricky part of the bike course. Like I think the first 40K can be tricky in terms of how hard you want to push in order to stretch out the field, and then the last 40 or 50K is how hard you want to push in order to not damage yourself in terms of the time gaps to the guys in front. But also, if you do try to limit the loss, you might break your own run legs. So, like for my
right.
own sake, when I came off the highway and start feeling that I was having been maybe too much in the same position and start feeling in the right quads. It was more important for me to get my right quads under control and getting the cramping off or like
Right.
getting the blood flow going again. So I didn't had to stop and as I've done a few times in the past where I'm just really struggling with the cramps as I come off the
Sure.
bike. So it was more important for me to just ease that off and then maybe lose another 30 or 40 or 50 seconds instead of staying with the front guys and then being forced to stop for a couple of minutes on the run.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's you've kind of got to weigh the options, right? You don't want to give away those 40 seconds, but if the cramps come, you're actually just standing still for a period of time. That's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
very
So
good.
you have to think about. So I also felt like it was cramping that I was using the bike muscles from, like in the face, and I'm pulling up the pedals.
Yeah.
The few times I've had it in the past, it hasn't been triggered by the run stride. So I thought that as long as I can get into
Interesting.
the run stride and find that rhythm, it will ease off a little bit in terms of the cramping. And then, as you know, on the marathon, it's we're not talking about a few minutes. It's 5, 10, 15 minutes you can lose if you're
Sure.
getting the cramps from early on. So that was I felt that was close enough to second transition that I couldn't lose too much time by easing off, maybe even up to 2 minutes. But that's something you can easily catch on the run if you are not put yourself in a bad position.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, one thing, people look at obviously the times that you're throwing down and they're quite fast, and especially on a course like Texas. And people think a flat bike course is like a quote unquote easy bike course, but I don't know about you, but for me, like those were the bike splits that my legs felt the worst after was when you're just sitting in that position going, in the big ring the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like a strange because I felt the power wasn't too high, but then the
Yeah.
cadence is higher, and for the power,
Hmm.
my heart rate was quite high, especially when I was riding in that group because like you have to be on and off, on and off, on and off that pedal,
Yeah.
both in order to stay close enough to the guys in front. Because if you suddenly get down from, so you have the 12-meter rule, and if you're staying at 13, 14, 15 meters, then you're close enough that the guy behind you is not going to jump across and go in the middle. But
Sure,
if
sure.
you let the gap open up a little bit too much, you suddenly have two guys behind who is rolling in front of you again.
Yeah.
So you want to stay close enough, but you can't stay too close, and then suddenly you have to be on the brake. So you have to be on and off quite a bit, and that's like a different fatigue that you're getting on the muscles. So actually, when I was having to push the pace a little bit more on the last, or push the power a little bit more on the last 60Ks, then the heart rate compared to the power was lower than it was in the beginning.
Interesting, because you have to do so much paying attention and like reacting to everybody else around you, especially with a group that size, right?
Yeah, and also like the power jumps way more up and down.
Yeah,
While in the end, it's more like you're having full control of the pedal phase, and you're just like trying to be
yeah.
efficient, and you're trying to stay in the right cadence.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then on the run, it seemed like you definitely were pushed earlier. At least you and Antonio Benito Lopez were running together before you caught the Aussies up front.
Yeah, it was more like I came into transition with the cramps, or like I was just getting
Yeah.
rid of the cramps on the bike, and I had a very good T2 as I was for the first time putting on the socks in T1. So
Okay. Oh, cool.
I was putting on the socks in T1 because then I thought it was easy to put on the calf sleeves over the socks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That took like two in one there. So I think I came off the bike maybe 5 or 10 seconds behind Antonio, and I was maybe 5 or 10 seconds ahead of him uh, out on the run. And then instead of trying to use the first 5 or 7K to chase something, I was just like
Yeah.
letting the first 1 or 2K get like naturally. And then it's often when you're having someone behind, they will always try to catch you like
Yeah.
slowly, and they are maybe making sure that they're running at your pace or even a few seconds slower. But then if you are up front and you're trying to compensate or like run away, it's easy to overdo it a little bit. So I was more like
Totally.
letting him catch me and him letting him dictate the pace a little bit. And if he was setting a hot pace in the beginning, I would more just sit behind him and hoping that he would struggle more from the pace than I would do. But then I felt quite comfortable at the pace and the stride that he was putting on after maybe 2Ks.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome. Yeah, it seemed like you were right on there, feeling good.
yeah, and then also having like a big bottle of a double mix Maurten. So I had a lot of carbs I was trying to get in on board already from the first uh, 3 or 4K. I was just trying to get it all in. So instead of trying to chase those seconds or pushing the pace down a few 5 or 10 seconds, I was mainly focusing on finding the rhythm, getting the heart rate down, and then getting the liquid and carbs in. And then after that, when the stomach sort of settled in a little bit, I was planning to find a steady pace. But like when I was coming off the bike with control, I felt I can get into the 10-15K mark before trying to do any damage.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's smart, right? I often tell athletes, like, kind of that, depending on the distance, obviously, 70.3 or Ironman, that first 3 miles or 4 miles or 5 miles, just run. Just
Yeah,
run and get as much of that nutrition in as you can. Take care of yourself because you still got a marathon you gotta do after this.
yeah, especially in on the marathon. Like
Yeah.
there's so much time you can gain up on that last lap. As you, I guess, if you're looking
Hmm.
through the splits, like everyone is struggling in the last 14K. So it's not like you're going out too slow and you will not be able to catch up again. Like
Sure.
I
Yeah,
think
totally.
I think everyone were putting down their slowest case in the end anyway. So just to have be a little bit calm and let the let the fatigue get to you in the end. It's coming, but just be patient and do the nutrition right and hope that it's coming as late as possible into the marathon. So typically you start getting like that fatigue after out on the second lap, maybe after 5, 26, 27K. But I was lucky to get even into the third lap halfway in there before I felt like, yeah, now I'm actually struggling. So the pace felt
Right.
quite comfortably going into almost 34, 35K.
That's awesome. And at that point, when you're in the lead and you see, yeah, kind of competitors behind you, and you said you started thinking about kind of the Pro Series in Texas, are you like staying on the gas more than you would in another race, knowing you want to get that gap to competitors like Rudy Von Berg and Cam Werf and et cetera?
Not, I didn't do too much. Like, obviously, I wanted to have a strong race and I didn't want to give
Yeah.
anything for free. But also, it wouldn't do a difference, like in terms of Magnus Ditlev, as an example. He got
Yeah,
5,000
totally.
points in South Africa. And for
Right.
me to
Yep.
dig myself into the grave in Texas wouldn't hurt him point wise. And I
Yeah,
think
that's
he's
smart.
one of the stronger guys as well. So if he was behind me and I knew that I had to put some points on him, then I would maybe have done it. But now it's also finding that sweet combination where a sweet spot where I'm still being able to recover well after the race, and then getting into Aix-en-Provence, getting good points of scores there, and then getting into the rhythm again and getting ready for Frankfurt. So it's more like being able to balance the full, like getting 3 good Ironman scores in is more important than trying to attack individuals by taking points away from
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, that's smart. Unless it's those individuals, right? Like a Magnus Ditlev
Yeah.
in that same race as you. And am I right in thinking, like, is your mindset now basically it's whoever between me and Magnus gives up any points is gonna lose, right? Like it's gonna be max points for you guys outside of World Championship, maybe.
Depends, like as we saw. So last year, Patrick Lange was about to win the whole series, and he won Kona as well. So in one way you can get a little bit blind of who is doing it well in the first 2 races of the season or 3 races
Sure.
of the season, but in the end of the day, the World Championship races count so much more. And if I'm coming in to Nice and being 60 minutes behind Patrick or Magnus, it's a lot of points lost,
Yeah.
and I'm not even sure if I'm getting any points. So
Yeah.
so like still a lot of damage can be done in just a one day. So even though it's a series, and in one way you can, they say that you can sort of score points in another race. It still comes down
Sure.
now to how I'm racing in Nice. That's going to be so important because I haven't, at least for now, I haven't planned to do a fourth Ironman. So
Right.
I better do a lot of good points in those 3 that I'm planning to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, in looking at the history books, obviously, of people that have ability to do well, obviously you've raced well in Kona, third place there in years past, but winning Ironman World Championships in St. George on that difficult course, like you've shown that you can win on any type of course. Obviously, like your fastest times. I mean, I think St. George and Kona are your only Ironman times where you've gone over 7:30, which is crazy. But how are you feeling about Nice? Are you excited on that course specifically to get after it?
Yeah, definitely. Especially after 2019 70.3 World Championship and seeing the atmosphere there and racing not exactly the same course, but sort of the same.
Sure.
It was great when the World Championship came to Nice, like back in 2023, and it was a little bit FOMO to not be racing it back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also now with the news that the World Championship is going back again to Kona, it just means that it's the very last opportunity to win a World Championship title outside of Kona. So
Yeah.
of course, I need to get a title on the big island, but I also want to win it in Nice. And yeah, it's such a historic location for the sport, and I just love the mountains there and the culture that that the French people is bringing into the sport. Like they love triathlon as well, and yeah, it's just giving me extra motivation to be able to perform this summer in Nice.
Dude, that's awesome. I love hearing that because it is really, and if you haven't gone there, maybe you couldn't experience it. But that place is such an awesome spot to host a world championship, and it's because it's just the French culture is amazing, the cycling culture is deep, and people show up on race day for that world championship, and it's fun to be able to see athletes like you and obviously that Sam Laidlow like see that as an opportunity to get a world championship in a place that isn't often or isn't always the case, and now moving forward won't be the case for an Ironman World Championship.
Yeah, totally. And also like the fact that it's you are in one way lonely out there on the course because you're going into the mountains and it's like a uh, big loop of 180K or so. But then again, you're coming down to the promenade and it's 4 laps back and forth to the airport, and it's getting quite crowdy and it's flat, it's fast, it's a very nice location, and also with no, not the beach, but like the rocky entrance to the
Yeah.
water as well. It's yeah, something you're seeing on TV. Like, and every time I get to the promenade and it's blue sky and nice weather, and I just thinking, well, why not I live in this? Like, it's such a nice location, and I always
Right.
think twice why I haven't moved to this already.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, you're right. I think of that often as well. Oh man, that's sweet. I'm looking forward to seeing you race out there and all those guys. All you guys put that effort in, and I mean, I think for you, it's hard to bet against you on a course like that when we know you've got the cycling ability, the technical ability, and I mean, you've also only really run over 240, what, once in Kona last year?
Yeah, that was like 3:30, didn't I?
Yeah.
So I've even
Yeah. We won't
oh, that
average it
was
out,
yeah. So
but
we just delete that one.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel I can even with quite tired legs often run a solid run.
Yeah.
It just depends who is in front on the bike course and how much damage do they try to do coming off the bike, and So we were in Nice for a month early this year just to get as much time or get like an
Oh,
understanding
awesome.
of how the course is. And it's not like a massive downhill. Like you have the first one that's sort of not too technical, but and then you have like the small climb again
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
you're going down the old course of the 70.3. So it's not like a massive downhill we can lose tons of time, but it's more about losing energy if you're braking too much and you have to accelerate again.
Sure.
So I think it's more like the better cyclist can actually save a lot of energy, and it's going to be very important to also don't forget, or that I'm not forgetting to take the nutritional board in the downhill, because suddenly
Yeah.
you're then not refilling for 60 minutes. So to be able to both be relaxed, get the nutrition in, and maybe be a little bit more tactical with where I'm bringing on liquid on board on the bike. So maybe not doing the full climb with the fully loaded bike, but
Right.
maybe
Yep.
bringing a little bit more energy gels towards on the bike. So relying a little bit more on water on course, and then grabbing the gels on course rather than bringing too many kilos of liquid up.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's smart because that is a legit climb. It does feel like a Tour de France stage kind of. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, and I think as far as the nutrition goes, and after it's hard for people not to comment when they see, Frankfurt thrown up a little bit, then Kona last year thrown up a little bit, and then like when I see someone like you have a race like you did in Texas, I'm like, oh, his nutrition is dialed, and obviously these days more than years past, it's the amount of carbs that the athletes, I think Cam Wurf said he was taking over 200 carbs an hour or something like that. Like it's a balance to be able to have enough energy to run those kind of run splits you're having. Can you talk us through like, kind of quickly on how you use Maurten in those races and how you've kind of dialed that in and know that you're in a good spot with digestion?
Yeah, so in terms of the puking in both Kona and Frankfurt, I think that was more down to like some damage I had in the throat.
Oh,
So
okay.
since actually St. George in May in 2022, when I got sick there,
Yeah.
I got some irritation in the throat, and I was starting to puke up a lot on training. And I was able to hold it on in the race on race day there, but
Yeah.
afterward, even when I came back to Bergen, I was on like random runs just puking, and I was struggling with that for like 2.5 years.
So it's like an esophagus issue of some sort.
Yeah, so it was sort of the from the stomach, it was like coming up and sort of making like some sore on the throat.
Right.
So
Okay. Okay.
I got like a camera going down the throat and down into the stomach after Kona to get
Yeah.
it checked out, and did some samplings down there, and I got some tablets to sort it out.
Oh,
So
cool.
since Kona, I haven't actually been puking once.
Oh, sweet.
So that's the longest time I've gone without puking since St. George 2022. So
Crazy.
I feel it wasn't a nutritional issue as it's maybe looking like on the
No,
bike
that's
when
great
you're
to
just
know.
puking up all the sports drink, but it was more like some yeah, more than that.
Yeah.
And that's definitely makes it easier on the race course when that's not being irritated, because it's so important to be able to get down those calories on race day, because the more grams of carbs you can digest, the higher power you can produce, as an example on the bike,
Right.
without running empty. So I think it's like for every 10 grams of carbs you are eating or getting down, you can increase the power with like 6 or 7 watts or something. So you can imagine the more
Interesting.
you take in, it's not just about how much you can take in, because your stomach needs to be able to absorb it. But the more you're able
Right.
to absorb, the more energy you're having coming off the bike, and the more energy you have for the run. So it's definitely the fourth discipline of the sport, and the fact that with technology that Maurten is having with the hydrogel, that makes it easier for the stomach to take up higher volume of grams of carbs, makes it also easier for all athletes to take up more
Right.
carbohydrates. But that's also going to lift up the level for everyone, and that's probably also why you see less or more and more people going faster and faster on the course. It's simply because it's not just the first 5 or 10 guys who is doing more carbs. It's something that everyone, even the age groupers, they are lifting up the amount of carbs they are taking in. well, I guess maybe back in the days they were maybe doing 60 to 70 grams of carbs when they were racing in Kona back in 2010 or something.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I mean, I look at the results in Texas, and you got to get to like almost 20th place till someone's going over 8 hours, right? And that's a lot because of obviously a lot of different technology, aerodynamics and all that. But I think nutrition is a huge part of it. And I appreciate you explaining that because how frustrating, what is it or was it for you? Are you pretty insular guy in the fact that people assume like you don't know what to do with your nutrition and they're like, oh, this guy's thrown up. He's eating too much. Like, was it frustrating for you for people
No,
thinking
no,
that?
I think it's always good to get different opinions. So, like,
Yeah.
some people had thought it was maybe the bike position I was too much forward leaning. So like all
Yeah.
of those comments is something we take into consideration.
Awesome.
It's good to have that sort of brainstorming almost that you're just getting all the ideas in and then thinking whether is that the real reason, or is it just something that's easy to throw out. So and then often people coming with advices like that, it's because they care and they're sharing on
Yeah.
me, and I just try to take that as a positive energy, and then yeah, still trying to do whatever I believe in, but it's also always good to get some second opinions. And
Man,
sometimes I might say, no, no, that's not the thing, and then I keep doing my thing, but then I still have the same issues 2 months later, and then you bring back that comment that someone gave you 2 months earlier, and then you try it, and it might be right. So it's always good to get those opinion, even though you don't always enjoy
yeah.
getting them there and then.
And that's a great attitude. I'm impressed by that answer. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. And I will say in Kona, I was actually the cameraman that got that footage of you, and I was like riding up, and I was like, "Huh, Kristian looks weird. I should stop here and take some." I'm like, "Oh man, I'm gonna get puke all over me." That was crazy. It's
I
crazy.
remember. So I saw you. At first, I felt like the irritation in the throat, and then I
Yeah.
realized, oh no, it's I having the camera straight into my face. Like, this is not good. And I came up once, but then it felt like I had like a hair in my throat, almost like that was just keep
Oh,
irritating me,
brutal.
and it came all over my shoulders, and I couldn't really clean my hands even because it was. Yeah, it was came all over me. So it was just feeling discomfort and empty and cooked, and
Uh,
waiting for the guys behind to catch me in order to sort of get back into that train and recover. But then they
yeah.
dropped me in the hill, and yeah, you're looking down on your computer and you see that you have done 80K or something, and you have 100K left of the bike course before the marathon. So
Uh,
it was, yeah, a tough place to be mentally.
Brutal, brutal. Yeah, and I was just impressed why you. It didn't seem like you ever took any power off the pedals when you were puking, and for me, that was like that was crazy.
But
That was
that's
awesome.
like the moment where you have to change tactics straight away. So my main
Yeah,
goal were to follow Magnus and get back up to the race with Sam and be early off the bike. But there is just important to change strategy straight away and think,
yeah,
okay, I lost this sort of boat or train or opportunity. Now I have to go for option B, and that's to be more reservative. Like I got cooked on the bike. I need to see if I can somehow over the next 2 hours get enough liquid in, get enough calories in, and do the last 90K easy enough that I can be running well off the bike and maybe run myself back onto the podium, or even maybe even winning the race. But that
yeah.
was maybe the mistake I did when I came back in, like on the way down from Javi. I was like riding there with Patrick and sort of into the group, and I was maybe getting too excited again when I came back into Queen K. And there I was suddenly
Right.
putting myself in a position where I was actually riding away from Patrick again and trying to work in that group in front. And instead of saying that or realizing that I just puked 2 liters 60 minutes ago, I need to play. I need to go for one card only, and that's
Yeah,
to recover until the run, and then be safe until the 21K onto the run, and then go for it. I went went hard again too soon, and that was maybe the deciding factor that cost me the whole day.
yeah. And I mean, I think it's hard for. I think sometimes we talk about Kona and its kind of mystique, and that there's you got to learn lessons out there, and sometimes people look at athletes like you that are like Olympic gold medalists and like have all these crazy fast times and think maybe, no, it's just high performance. Learning a lesson doesn't do you any good out there, but it sounds like you learned some lessons out there, even with that race last year.
Yeah, definitely. And then, especially when you're having another hour on the run course. So instead of doing the 2:35 run that you were planning to, when you're doing it for 3.5 hours, you have enough time to think through everything you've done in the past and everything you think you should have done, and trying to evaluate the whole race and the build up and the mistakes you did during the swim, bike, and maybe even the run.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a good time for reflection, and I think also that's why it's like an humbling experience, but it's also good in one way. And if you just pulling the plug in Al-Hi Drive and calling it a day, I think you're not getting the same learning experience. It doesn't hurt as much as it does to be out there and struggling to finish that course. So
yeah,
that was also one of the reasons why I just wanted to finish the race. Like, I obviously knew that it's going to. When I struggled to even get up Palani on the run to get onto
yeah.
the Queen K, and there was maybe, isn't it like 30K or something left. I knew that I was sort of out of the race. I knew there was more like
That's
I'm
the
probably gonna
worst.
get down to a 5 minute pace, not per mile but per K for most
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the for rest of the run. But then it's more like yeah, it's probably going to be increasing my recovery time by another week, but it's the last race of the season, and it's better to just empty the tank completely and then build up again for hopefully a big 2025 season.
yeah. That's awesome, and I think you're right. I think being out in that space and getting through kind of the suffering that you set yourself up to be in, it allows you to work through some things for years forward, right? And actually like absorb it. Where when you just kind of pull out, you can shoulda, coulda, woulda, you can blame it on different things. But like I think that mind space that uh, the Queen
It,
K puts you in is a brutal one.
I think the feeling I hopefully will have when I'm feeling like I'm flying through NG Lab next year in 2026, then I
Yeah,
will remember back when I was having to struggle just to walk through the aid station. That's gonna
totally.
make the feeling of mastering the course way better.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, man, obviously a big announcement here recently about us going back to Kona, men and women together, all on the same day in 2026. Are you excited about that?
Yeah, I think it was like the biggest bummer with moving the course was the fact that you had to split up the men and women's event,
Yeah,
and of course it would have been great to have a 2 days event, a little bit like you're having over the 70.3, but
sure.
it's a difficult decision to make when you, uh, in terms of how do you want to expand the sport? Do you want to make it able to, like, for more female athletes to come in, or do you want to give them their own day, or is Hawaii so important that it is? And as a professional, again, like, I enjoy racing all kinds of different sports, and it's more about who is turning up to the race. But I totally see it from the age groupers standpoint that it's something about Hawaii that's their dream. It's a mystique, and that's where the sport comes from. Like, it's a really iconic place, and that's also where all the legends in the past have been doing their things. So
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and there's something about like even when it was separate, maybe people don't understand necessarily if they're not at all these world championships, but it feels like a family reunion and a celebration to a certain extent, right? And yes, the separate days were amazing, and it was awesome to be able to have that focus. And we're going to make sure we have great coverage to compensate for that and equal what we had with those separate races. But to have everybody in the same place at the same time, being able to have that experience, I think is something special, and it's the history of the sport. It's gonna be sweet.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
also, it's not ideal when you're going as a single guy to an event and there's only dudes there.
I was hoping you'd go there. Yeah,
Uh,
it's
that's
a
why we
little bit.
back both gender back to the events.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. It's the feedback from Kristian was we need everybody together. Appreciate that. That's awesome. And yeah, man. So the rest of the year, you said you've got Frankfurt is the Ironman that you're going back trying to defend that title?
Yes. So it's
Sweet.
the European Championship in Frankfurt. That's also, I think, Magnus Ditlev is coming there. But the most important one is going to be Nice. So Nice, and then Marbella, and then Aix-en-Provence. So that's like the important races. And then I think I will do some extra races by the end of the season in like end
Yeah.
of November. But I haven't planned them exactly, but it will be a little bit more races as well. I feel it's 6 races for a year isn't really enough, so I need to do a little bit
Right.
more.
That's awesome. And do you find the two distances and with the Ironman Pro Series that like are they always do they feel separate? Or do you feel like trying to peak for these Ironman races in some way is improving your 70.3 distance or vice versa? Are you learning things from those two distances?
Oh, I find it quite. I feel it's almost bigger difference between a 70.3 and an Ironman than it is from a 70.3 and Olympic distance.
Sure.
So you can almost do the same training for 70.3 and Olympic distance. While for
Yep.
Ironman, you can have some athletes who's just really shining and is mastering the pace that's required for the marathon and who can ride the back end of the 180K. So that's more like a thing to master. And also the tricky thing with Ironman training is that if you're doing too much, I feel that you're bleeding off too much of your 70.3 pace. So it's
Sure.
almost like if you're doing 3 blocks of Ironman training, both going into Texas and to Frankfurt and to Nice, I would probably be sacrificing in Nice. So it's not like I can do too much of that specific training. So I need to do enough to be ready for the race day, but also I need to do higher intensity in order to build the threshold and the power and the foundation there. So I think that's also why I'm going to do a little bit more higher intensity going into Frankfurt than what I was doing going into Texas. And then will probably be a little bit similar to how I was training going into Texas, will be similar to how we'll do it in Nice.
Do you think do you see any benefit from the Ironman training back on 70.3? Like, do you feel like your bike legs are stronger at the end of a 70.3 because of that? Do you see a benefit or is it just, it takes away from that top end?
I think it takes more away from the top end.
Yeah.
The only benefits might be that it makes 90K and 21K feel short.
Totally.
So it's like when you have done it too many times, it's like you're getting onto that last lap so much easier than you're doing in the past. And but that's not always a positive thing, because then you haven't trained yourself in the right way. You can squeeze out the best of you over the duration that you're racing at. So it's a
Sure.
little bit like when I came back to short course and I felt that I don't have any gears left to run faster, but I could have done another 5K. But that's not the point with the race. It's about getting it
Right.
out over a 10K run race.
Totally.
So that's maybe the tricky thing again with balancing the volume and the intensity. And that's also the challenge when you're having to do 3 Ironman races over a year.
Yeah.
How early do you do the first one? How much do you put in for the second one? And how do you taper for the third one? And as well, being able to get the leg speed for the half distance. And then
Yeah. It was,
also the fact that you're having some guys only targeting the 7.3 World Championship
yeah.
who doesn't do Ironman at all. They might do coming from short course, and then you have to deal with their leg speed as well, and
Totally.
knowing how to race them. And yeah, it's makes it almost even more difficult to win the 70.3 than winning the full.
Yeah. No, I'd see that. And yeah, especially, you talking about, 3 Ironmans over the season and also timing that the most important Ironman of your season is that third one, right?
Yeah.
Like not burning all those matches. But yeah, you're right. The first 70.3 after an Ironman, you're like, wait, we're almost done. This is great. Like it goes by so fast.
Yeah, about to do the Aussie exit, but then you're done on the swim.
Christian's running back in the water. Somebody get him back. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Sweet. So, are you back into training full on already, or do you give yourself a couple weeks to ease back off of an
No,
Ironman?
So I've been training easy now from Monday to today, which is a Friday.
Yep.
So with that, it's more like between 3 and 4K in the water, just easy, and then doing a little bit of running or cycling, so a few hours here and there. And from tomorrow on, I will do a little bit more intervals, so a little bit work on the run, on the track tomorrow, maybe some 400s to get a little bit higher speed, but it's more like uh, really feeling how the body is responding. And if I feel good, I can push the pace down. In the end, if I'm not feeling great, I will just
Right.
keep it at 3:10 or 3 minute pace, and just letting the body get back into the stride. And the same for the swim. And then it's more important to be responding well on the training midweek next week in order to get enough or some sessions in before X and pull ones.
Right. Sure. That's awesome, man. Sounds like you're doing it the right way, and big season ahead. And I'm super stoked to see you getting excited and the way your brain is thinking about the Ironman Pro Series. And I know you're going to put on a show for us the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's really cool how the whole or the Ironman is bringing more attention as well to the pros and bring like they're giving the pros their own series and getting more coverage, getting more prize money, and really investing into the athletes. That's something I know that all the professional athletes is appreciating, and
Right.
yeah, I can't see where, or I'm really looking forward to see where this is going.
That's awesome, man. Well, appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down and chat with us. And yeah, can't wait to watch you the rest of the season.
Thank you.
It was an awesome chat with the man, Kristian Blummenfelt. Great to get a little bit of insight into what's been going on for him so far this season. And I'm pretty stoked to see that he's gotten to the bottom of some of those issues from last year. And I would say for his competitors, that's pretty scary that the one weakness that they were like holding on to, he's figured out with that vomiting, and I haven't seen it this year. And he sounds pretty confident that it's not going to be a problem moving forward. And since we had that recording with Kristian, he's won the Ironman 70.3 Haute-en-Provence and firmly put himself in the lead of the Ironman Pro Series with Jonas Schoenberg just 109 points back and Leon Chevier another 850 points back. And on the women's side, we had Marta Sanchez move up into the lead with a fourth place just this last weekend with 197 points over Ann Reichman and a further 769 to Lisa Pereira. So things are starting to shape up on the Ironman Pro Series leaderboard. Now that all those athletes, or at least on the men's side, 3 races each, I believe, and on the women's side, 2 races each, things are starting to shape up. And certainly Kristian Blummenfelt with 2 perfect scores, and even considering he had a bad race in Oceanside with that flat tire, still big lead. So things starting to show how it might look near the end of the season. I can't wait to see how that plays out. And now that we were able to talk to Kristian about his nutrition being a big part of his racing, we thought at no better time to do a little chat on nutrition. And here at Ironman, we've got some resources, so I figured we'd go straight to the source and talk to the global education manager for Maurten, Ben Vriends. How's it going, Ben?
Yeah, all good. Thank you. How are you doing, Matt?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just getting the day started. A little different time zones here, but looking at a good day, and excited to talk to you about some nutrition and how things have changed in the last little bit. There's been a little bit of change in nutrition in the last decade or so.
I would say so, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. First, obviously you're someone who comes in with a lot of experience and credibility in this space. So yeah, tell us a little bit about. I was doing some snooping on your Instagram. It seems like you got some Ironman 70.3s in you, some fast marathons in you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm nowhere at the level of the real pro guys, but I've been quite an enthusiastic runner myself. At one point, I decided to quit my job for it. I don't think I really made it, but I at least gave myself a shot to run as fast as I could. And then when I started working at Maurten, I don't know what it was, but I could see these triathletes, and then I decided to try out the bike and some swim as well, and I'm actually enjoying it a lot.
That's awesome. How did you find that transition being at like, you're being humble because we all know it is hard to make it as a professional athlete, but you were at the top level of that sport. How was it transitioning into a totally different discipline with triathlon? What did you find the hardest?
Well, actually, the funny thing is that I found the hardest was the run in the triathlon because I mean, I had such high standards of myself in running. Like, so I remember the first time I did a Olympic distance triathlon, and then I felt like, well, a 10K. I mean, I can always run a 10K in like 33 minutes, even though I'm tired, you know.
Yeah.
But this was really stressful. Like after pushing a lot on the bike, it's actually very hard to maintain the right posture and a fluent stride. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's funny, and it's funny too because I think these guys, we're just talking to Kristian, what they're doing off the bike is absolutely insane. And back in the days, like I used to say, running a marathon in a triathlon isn't like running a marathon. You're just kind of like running and trying to survive. It's like an adventure race. For us mortals, be able to do that is quite difficult. It's funny that you found that to be, you always expect someone to say the swim, but yeah, that perspective is great.
It was definitely, of course, hard to transition into also a swimmer and a cyclist, but I mean, I could see the progression was coming very easily, whereas in the running, I went a bit more backwards instead of seeing progression. Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah,
that's funny. Man, I think it's a great segue to just getting into talking about it, because I do think in years past, maybe my thought on running a marathon, at least for me at my level, wasn't running a marathon, it was just surviving. And part of that certainly was the decrease in my body's ability to have energy. And you're just like, okay, I'm just trying to survive. And seems to, in the last 5 or 10 years, gotten a lot, like there were always outliers where guys were just attacking it and running and having amazing runs. But it seems all these times are getting so much faster because so many more athletes, when the bank of calories supply on board runs out or used to run out, that's when things just would kind of go to the ground. And now you're seeing people racing all the way to the finish line. And yeah, tell us a little bit about how, nutrition and the changes in nutrition have really upped the sport. And that's why we're seeing these like 2:32, 2:30 marathon times.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting observation from you, and like in the past, triathlon has been a energy game always. Like, but I mean, we're not actually running out of energy in a way, because we do have fat storages that we can utilize, but it doesn't feel really nice, right? So when we make use of the like more of when we run out of carbohydrates and we start to use more of the fat utilizations, it's not the same feeling, and therefore in the past we were trying to tackle this problem by training, and maybe training on empty stomach and so on.
Right.
But nowadays, when the limitations in the absorption in the stomach and the gut is maybe is bypassed, then we see more attractive racing, because we can feel while we are racing, and I think that makes it very interesting. Yeah.
No, for sure. And it's it's kind of nice being post racing career when all these things are coming up, because like there's a part of me that's like, oh man, I wish I would have this and would have the opportunity to race like this, and I genuinely do. But there's also a part of me that's like, oh, the reason why I never ran 2:30 off the bike was because I didn't have the hydrogel, right? But it really has had such a difference, and correct me if I'm wrong in that, you're right, we were like trying to train the body to like fat burn and to be efficient at that pace, but we're also, it seems like the amount of calories, or now I want to talk to you a little bit about now why we're mostly talking about carbs, the ability to absorb more is a huge key to this. to this improvement in pace and obviously longevity in Ironman?
Yeah. So mostly, I mean, the biggest reason for that is that when the body has carbs available, so carbohydrates, then it will always prioritize carbohydrates over other fuel sources. So we can also produce ATP to contract the muscle from fat and even from protein. So like that's not really the issue, but the thing is that getting energy from carbohydrates is so easy for the body. It's the fastest way to contract this muscle. And now when we are improving the absorption and the uptake of carbohydrates, then we can see that actually the performance capacity goes up as well. And then the question is still a pacing question. So what are you going to do with this updated fuel tank, or where's the limitation of fueling during performance? And that's I think we still didn't find the actual limitation there.
You still think there's a lot more room to grow as far as that goes? Yeah,
well, I mean, I've seen in the past year that there was triathletes going up to huge amounts. I know that you've addressed the 200 grams and so on, and we see in individuals that there might be it might be possible that extreme individuals like Kristian are actually absorbing these carbohydrates and being able to oxidize them in the muscles. But what is the actual limitation? And also, if we train the gut, how much can we do that? And the answer is still a little bit into the unknown.
Right. And does it end up being a lot more, do you see a lot more holistic work with the athletes on like gut health in general outside of, just race day nutrition? Because obviously if you're talking about maybe the weapon that could be the most important in these very high octane races is the person that simply can ingest the most carbs per hour.
Yeah, I think it like in the past we always have seen talented athletes as talented when they were able to absorb a lot of training, when they were able to be among the best of their class. When it came down to like the physical performance, or like in tests, the amount of oxygen that they could consume. And I think right now maybe another factor is like how good are you at absorbing nutrients during performance. Can be a factor in detecting talent in these endurance sports.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like, for me chatting with some of the athletes that are obviously trying to push the boundaries and seeing improvement, is that you see a lot more athletes, not eating dairy, trying to limit gluten and, different things that might cause a little bit of inflammation in the gut, so that you're just always running a cleaner system, right?
Yeah, and at the same time, I mean, we're always talking about training the gut, and this means we have to train the race fuel during the training so we can absorb a lot of it during performance. But I mean, on the other side of that, you also want to be quite flexible in what you can tolerate as in normal nutrition, and sometimes maybe this means that we're not only aiming for the things that are not disturbing the stomach and intestine. So race day recommendations are different from training recommendations, obviously.
Right. So allowing a little bit of quote unquote stress in daily life on the gut is an okay thing.
I would say yes, and I mean, especially for the ones listening to this podcast, it's I would highly recommend to have quite a lot of fibers from fruits and maybe other sources in your normal diet, so that the gut health can be optimal. And then on race day, yes, we will switch to gels and drinks and that kind of things that don't harm the gut as much, but I think it's good to be tolerable towards a lot of different sources of nutrition.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Anything we do, you want to make sure there's your body responds to that stress and can get stronger from it for sure. And you just kind of never know what you might be, your pre-race your pre-race routine might not always be repeatable if you're traveling to different races and stuff, right? So being able to have some variability there. And so what is it about the changes in the quote unquote like technology of nutrition and kind of what's going into products, and specifically Maurten products, that make this absorption so much easier, right? Like back in the day, I used to eat 500 calories an hour in my racing, but at some point it would still, the gut would be an issue. I'd be eating gummy bears and stuff like that, right? Like we've seen the old video of Peter Sagan eating a bunch of gummy worms at the end of a race. How much different is that kind of carbohydrate versus what a product like Maurten is providing?
That's actually a good question, and I mean, I can answer that from a lot of different perspectives. Like you can see a product in various ways. So there's obviously the carbohydrate ingredients, which are in the Maurten products, the glucose and fructose in the gels, or the maltodextrin and fructose in the drinks. And nowadays we know that if we use two types of carbohydrates in a product, we can use different transport mechanisms in the intestine to get these sugars or carbohydrates actually in the system. But then there's also like the form of how do we get these products into the stomach? How do we get these products tolerable? And we know that the consistency of a product has a lot of impact as well. So these gummy bears were actually, I mean, you could see them as a very solid gel or something that is very solid, but still pretty processable. Yeah. And so at Maurten we played around with the different factors here, and so one is the sources of carbohydrates, and I guess that all premium products nowadays they carry a good ratio between maltodextrin and fructose, or glucose and fructose. So that different transport mechanisms can do their job. But apart from that, we work with the hydrogel technology. This is actually, I would say, quite simple. So we added 2 dietary fibers into the drink mixes and into the gels. And these dietary fibers, they can act as a transport mechanism for carbohydrates.
Right. Awesome. So, and what is it exactly that those fibers are? Why is that such a breakthrough compared to what it used to be? What was there besides the fibers?
So it is actually like if we would remove the fibers, then we would have a very simple but highly effective sports drink, I would say, because it is just maltodextrin, fructose, a bit of salt and water, which is a sports drink. Very simple but effective. But these fibers are coming from apple and from seaweed. And one of these fibers, it's named alginate. It's from the seaweed. As soon as it is in a more acidic environment, it contracts. So this means that these fibers are like small sponges. And when they are mixed in the bottle, they absorb the sports drink. So they start to get more swollen, like a sponge filled with sports drink, but smaller. Yeah. And as soon as you drink this product, it's like a fluid drink, but you're not consuming a normal sports drink. You're actually drinking fibers filled with sports drink. And when they touch your acidity in the stomach, then the alginates, they contract. And this means that they will shape a hydrogel, which is very stiff, almost like the gummy bears that you were referring to.
Right.
And we know that structure goes down very well because it doesn't mix with stomach fluids. And that's actually the trick that we did. I don't know if you can follow me here, but
No, you did. Well, I mean, you could see, my eyes are spinning a little bit because it's, I didn't score A's on all my science back in the college career, but no, it makes sense. And the way that you described the fibers kind of delivering to the stomach makes perfect sense. And it's funny to me thinking way back in the day what nutrition was, and it was like somebody in their kitchen making a bar that had like this amount of protein and this amount of whatever and this amount of carbs, and then seeing I picture all you guys in a bunch of white coats in the lab like figuring out that the alginate is the key to delivering it. And it's, I kind of joke around, but that's why there's been this crazy progression, and we see it in triathlon, we see it in cycling maybe a little bit earlier on, because I think maybe the amount of carbs that they could ingest maybe was higher than what triathletes thought they could. But it's quite clear that performance is, we're looking at the super shoes and we're looking at aerodynamics, but I would argue, and I'm sure you have argued, that nutrition and where that's come has probably been a bigger increase in advantage over the years prior.
Yeah, I mean, I have probably a pretty biased thinking here, but I always try to be as objective as possible with my position in the company, of course. And I think when we started with this product, this was actually not in triathlon, but in marathon running. And we could see all the African athletes. They couldn't tolerate sports drinks at all, almost. So they were barely having any nutrition in a marathon. And then when they started using like the hydrogel technology, they reported back it's the drink that disappears. They always said this is the magic drink.
Interesting.
To us. And this, of course, in itself is no science, because this is just anecdotes from elite athletes. But the more we got feedback, it was the same story over and over again. We can tolerate more, and we can consume higher amounts of carbohydrates. And I mean, it's very debatable. What is the amount of performance improvement that is coming from the carbon shoes or from hydrogel? I mean, I wouldn't dare to give you a hard answer here, but I know for sure that you can't really run a fast marathon without having any carbohydrates in your system.
Right.
So yeah, of course, carbohydrates play a huge role in the performance, and it's not about. I like to refer to it as this: you don't need carbohydrates to reach the finish line, because, as you know, you did it in the past with an empty tank as well.
Yeah.
But for us now, it's about how much can we utilize in order to perform at a maximum level. In performance nutrition, that is the actual question that we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're also, we used to talk about at a certain point the piano falls on you in a marathon. I don't know if you guys have that saying, but turns out, the legs are gonna hurt, but the piano doesn't fall on you if it was the bottom falling out of your carbohydrate, your energy source, was what was causing that piano to fall on you, right?
Exactly.
That way.
Yeah. I think we call it in Europe hit the wall or being hammered down or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's crazy, and I do wish there was an opportunity. Maybe someday I'll get back and do another one and see how clean it feels having that energy at the end. But I kind of want to get some, because we've got you here, and as you said, the listeners here some of this might be new information. Some people still out there with bananas strapped to their top tube, or eating protein early in the bike, and those sort of things. How would you suggest an athlete training maybe for the first Ironman or first 70.3, or just out there trying to continue to improve, how they can best try to find out, like, sure, Kristian can call you guys and be like, oh, 200 grams? Okay. Yeah, we'll do 200 grams. How does a normal person figure out what their body can manage, and how would you suggest going into that process?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's something, I mean, to be completely honest, I would love to give everyone an individualized approach, because that would be the most ideal situation. Because everyone is a different individual that reacts differently on different moments. But that said, I think we try to write that down on our website as well. So we have a fuel guide where you could inform yourself, like, this is a basic start on maybe an interval session, or maybe a long ride. What can I do? As a general approach, just to get yourself started into fueling. So this is not where we are advising like the maximum amounts of carbohydrates. But when someone is already fueling, like on a basic level, knows that they have to take something on the right moments, and then I mean, it would be great if you start to look for the edge a little bit more. So this can be done in training sessions where you either go a bit intenser or a bit longer in duration, where you can really find for yourself, like, where is my edge on absorption of products, like gels and drinks. If you find that edge, so like when it goes wrong, sometimes people immediately draw a conclusion like, okay, this is not a good product, or maybe this is not the right strategy for me. But as a performance nutritionist, I would say, look at it as I think Kristian said in the interview, was that, like, yes, we should brainstorm a little bit more. If we get negative feedback, get that together and find, like, where did we find the edge? How can I overcome that edge? Can I build it up more slowly?
Right.
I think that's the learnings we can take from a pro like him. I mean, very often people compare themselves with pros, and then they say, like, oh, this guy is taking 200 grams per hour. Should I do that as well? And I would say, no, don't do that. But what can you learn from this pro? How did this guy build up the amounts of carbohydrates that they could tolerate? And the answer is they were training this, and they were finding that edge and stayed right below maybe all the time. And then they made another small step. So it's not like, let's hit 200 grams, but it's about, like, how can I move from 40 to 60, or from 60 to 90 in a way.
That's so, I love that you put it that way, because 100%, there were probably people early in our conversation that are like, 200 grams an hour, I'm going to give it a shot. That's what's going to be the thing. But it would be the same as that person trying to run a 2:32 marathon off the bike. Like, you cannot do that. Why would you think you can do that? You're not going to be able to do the same thing as Kristian. And, we've seen Cam Wurf had a crazy amount of carbs in. That was, it was international news, the amount that he was to do. But it's just as you're not going to be able to ride a 3:53 like Cam Wurf, I guarantee you won't, because it's the fastest one that's ever happened. You also probably shouldn't assume that you can just jump in and consume the same amount of carbs as he can.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And just one last little question. I know you've got a day ahead of you, but behind you, and an evening ahead of you. I know some athletes are confused because so many years it was calories per hour versus carbs per hour. Would you have any suggestion on, besides just like transferring 2 carbs an hour, on how someone can get their head around making that kind of move in dialogue, and how they can understand energy?
That's actually a good question. And I mean, different fuel sources, they deliver different amounts of calories per gram. And for carbohydrates, it's a quite simple calculation. So 1 gram of carbohydrates delivers 4 calories in energy. So if I take like 100 grams of carbs, this means 400 calories in energy. Yeah. So the conversion is from calories to carbs is dividing by 4. And the opposite way is multiplying it by 4. The most, like the scientific recommendations from American College of Sports Medicine and so on, they are usually in grams per hour. So I think that's why we talk about this, and knowing that carbohydrates are the predominant fuel source for a body, and that's why we talk grams per hour of carbs instead of calories, because calories could also be protein or fat.
Sure.
Yeah, if we don't specify that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And to me, that's a crazy perspective, because back in the day, and I've talked about myself too much in this, but that's kind of how we, can see how things change. But I used to be one of the people that ingested the most calories, and certainly in bike racing as well as in Ironman racing, and it was like 500 calories an hour. And
that's quite a lot.
Yeah. And back in the day, but like you're saying, Cam Wurf is doing 700 or 800.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. Absolutely.
But I guess that you, Matt, you were a little bit ahead of the curve at that time.
I might have been. I didn't tell too many people about it, but the problem was it didn't turn out into any world championship wins, unfortunately. But we've got the limitations. We've all got our own limitations. But
exactly.
That's awesome. And I appreciate. I did get a little bit squirrely-eyed there when you were talking about the fibers and the algae, but you really were able to explain a lot of that, I think, in layman's terms, that and show the importance that things really have changed. And if you're looking at, and we all get into the shiny thing, right? Like you want the new aero helmet, you want the new wheel set, but I will say, and certainly after this kind of some of the data in this conversation, like it is just as important, if not more important. I mean, that's the engine, right? Like
exactly.
You would never let the oil run dry in your car and put fancy tires on it, right?
Exactly.
You want to make sure you've got the right fuel in there.
I think you're right that nowadays sometimes the emphasis on how it looks or like what is very visible. People like to spend a good amount of money on a bike, but I would, as a performance nutritionist, I always like to look at it like, where do we gain the most performance benefits? And if that's the carbon wheels, then we need to replace these wheels, yes. But I often see that people can work on general nutrition, like normal foods, but also their performance nutrition on race day.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much, and we'll say thank you for obviously the support that Maurten gives to this podcast. We couldn't do it without you, and obviously for your time here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was great. Ben, great guy, obviously, and sweet to see someone with the experience from a athletic background and a sports nutrition background be able to give us some insight on kind of all that's been changing on the nutrition side of things. And it to me, it is crazy, and hopefully I'm sure you've felt that, just the amount of calories or carbs that the athletes can ingest now, and why that really is such a big part in improvement. And it's not just for the top end guys, as he was saying, maybe you're not gonna be able to do 200 grams per hour like Kristian, but you can do better than you're probably doing. And so, thanks to Maurten for giving us that resource to be able to talk to Ben, and to stay across all the latest Ironman and Ironman Pro Series news, follow at Ironman Try on Instagram, and check out proseries.ironman.com for standings, athlete bios, episodes of A Fighting Chance, replays of the races, and more. And I have to give another big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Maurten, the official sports performance nutrition partner of the Ironman Global Series. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you're sitting on the trainer, you can also watch the podcast as a video on our Ironman Triathlon YouTube channel. Thanks so much for joining us on the Ironman Insider podcast presented by Maurten, and be sure to keep an eye on this space for more great conversations with some great people in the season ahead. I'm Matt Lieto, and thank you so much for tuning in.